Hello, and welcome to the Night Sky Reader. I'm here with a story to help you relax, meditate, or gently drift to sleep. Tonight, Reclaimed Spiral, Midnight Bowl. Settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. The door clicks shut behind you, and the sound seals the night outside. You stand in the dark studio for a moment, letting your eyes adjust, letting the day's momentum drain from your shoulders. The overhead fluorescents stay off. Their brightness would be too much now. You reach for the single task light above the wheel and thumb the switch. A warm pool of light spreads across the splash pan, across the foot pedal, across the stool waiting at exactly the height you left it this morning. You've been away from the wheel for 3 weeks. Work, weather, the flu, reasons that accumulated into absence. Your hands remember, but they'll need to relearn. Tonight is the return. Just one bowl, one piece of proof that the center still holds when you ask for it. You check the station with small, deliberate gestures. The pedal moves smooth and silent beneath your palm. The wheel head spins free when you give it a gentle push. No grit in the bearings, only the faint whisper of well-oiled motion. The splash pan seats with a soft plastic click. You adjust the stool a fraction of an inch, feeling for the position that will let your elbows brace against your thighs without strain. Above, the high window holds a rectangle of night sky. Dark blue at the edges, deeper black at the center, steady, unblinking. No stars visible through the city glow, just the calm, even darkness of late hours. You let your gaze rest there for a breath, then another. The window becomes an anchor, a frame that holds stillness. You sit. The stool supports your weight. You place your feet flat on the concrete floor, feeling the cool solidity through your shoes. The wheel waits, patient as a held breath. Your mind tries to jump ahead to the email you left unanswered from your sister, asking again about Thanksgiving, about whether you're ready to see everyone, about the conversation neither of you wants to have. You notice this without sinking into it. You return your attention to the breath moving through your nose, to the temperature of the studio air against your forearms, to the faint smell of wet earth that lingers here even when nothing is being made. You are here to make one bowl. One modest bowl from one lump of reclaimed clay. Nothing more. You stand. The movement is slow, deliberate. You walk to the reclaim station across the studio, your footsteps muted on the dusty floor. The plaster slab sits there pale against the work table, dusted with the powder of dry clay, marked with faint spiral fingerprints from previous sessions. You lift the lid from the damp box and reach inside. The reclaimed clay is cool in your palms, slightly denser than fresh clay, carrying the memory of previous shapes, trimmings and scraps that were too dry to throw, too good to waste, kneaded back into workable form on this plaster bed. It has small inconsistencies. You feel them as you test the lump with your thumbs. A bit of grit, slight variations in moisture where the water hasn't fully migrated to the driest parts. This is your constraint tonight, not a handicap, but a teacher. You move to the work table and set the clay down. You dust your hands lightly, freeing them of excess moisture. You begin wedging. You press the heel of your right hand into the clay and push forward, leaning your weight into the motion, then fold the mass back toward yourself and press again. The spiral forms naturally under your hands, a consequence of the push and fold, push and fold. You do not think about the spiral. You simply let it happen. You feel the clay beginning to align. The particles of dried clay mingle with the particles that remained wet. The moisture evens out. The mass becomes coherent, loses its internal argument. You wedge until the clay feels unified under your palms, until it no longer fights itself when you press, until it is ready to be convinced into a new form. You pause. You run your thumb across the cut surface where you slice the lump free from the larger mass. Smooth, even. No air pockets visible. Good enough. You prepare your water at the sink, listening to the liquid sound as the bucket fills. You carry it to the wheel and set it down within easy reach. You let your fingers test the temperature. Cool, not cold. The kind of cool that wakes the skin without shocking it. You set the small throwing bowl beside the wheel, half filling it with water for sponging. You reach for your tools, wooden rib smooth and worn, needle tool secure in its cork, sponge wrung until it holds moisture without dripping. The wire cutter coils beside the bat like a patient serpent. You fold the towel twice for your lap, its fabric soft from many washings. You choose a bat from the shelf and check that it seats flat against the wheel head. You press the center, testing for wobble. None. The pins align. The bat sits true. You return to the work table and lift your wedged clay. It is a modest lump, enough for a small bowl, a personal bowl, a bowl for quiet eating or holding small things. You carry it to the wheel with both hands. You slap the clay onto the center of the bat. The sound is soft, a dull thwack that seems louder in the quiet studio. You press down with the heels of both hands, sealing the clay to the surface, pushing out any trapped air pockets that might cause trouble later. You feel the clay grip the bat. The bond is good. It is attached. It is not going anywhere. You wet your hands in the throwing bowl. The water is cool against your skin, coating your palms, filling the creases of your knuckles. You start the wheel with the foot pedal, pressing gently, adjusting the pressure with small movements of your ankle, slowly at first, then moderate. The wheel hums to life. It is a low sound, a steady mechanical breath beneath your hands, beneath the spinning clay. The clay begins to turn, and your hands make first contact. The clay is off-center. More than you expected. The bump against your palms is insistent, a rhythm that says not even close. Your chest tightens. 3 weeks away is showing. You brace your elbows against your thighs, creating a frame, a steady architecture of bone and muscle that will not waver. Your hands become walls. The clay spins between them, testing. You press your hands against the spinning clay, and you begin to cone it up. You add a small amount of water from the sponge, just enough to make your hands slip smoothly over the surface. With steady pressure, you guide the clay upward, squeezing it between your palms, shaping it into a taller, narrower cone. You feel the clay's resistance change as it moves. Stiff spots soften as the motion distributes moisture and aligns particles. Dry pockets absorb water. The mass becomes more uniform under your hands. You travel slowly from base to apex, letting the clay follow rather than forcing it. The wheel hum deepens slightly as the shape changes. You pause briefly at the top of the cone, steadying it with light fingertip pressure. You feel the clay still wobbling, still off, then you press down. You guide the cone back into itself, spiraling it down with your palms, using the heel of one hand as a steady wall while the other shapes and compresses. The clay travels downward, growing wider, shorter, denser. You compress the mass as you lower it, taking out the air, strengthening the structure. You feel for the moment when the clay stops nudging your hands, when the rhythmic bump disappears, when it runs so true that you could close your eyes and not know it was moving except for the hum beneath your feet. You touch lightly with one fingertip, still a tremor, a small vibration. You cone up again, bringing the clay higher, narrower, spiraling it back down. Your breath steadies. The clay follows. You check again. The wobble fades, then disappears entirely. You slow the wheel slightly with a gentle release of pedal pressure. The hum drops in pitch. The centered mound stays stable, compact, ready. The tightness in your chest loosens. Your hands still know this. The center is still there when you call for it. You wet your fingertips in the throwing bowl, watching the water darken your skin. You position your hands over the center of the mound. You press both thumbs into the apex, feeling the clay give way, creating a small depression. The wheel turns. Your thumbs descend slowly, opening the form. You stop and check the depth, using the needle tool. You pierce straight down beside your thumb until you feel the resistance of the bat beneath. You lift the needle and measure the clay coating on its shaft with your fingertip. Approximately 1/2 inch. A good base. thick enough to support what will come, to bear weight, to be trimmed later if necessary. You place the needle tool back in its cork. You return your hands to the opening. You widen it with steady outward pressure, your fingers traveling from center toward the rim in slow increments, broadening the circle, creating a flat floor. The clay responds. The opening grows. You compress the base with your fingertip, traveling in slow circles, strengthening the bottom, removing any trapped air that might cause cracking in the kiln weeks from now. You feel the subtle texture of the reclaimed clay under your fingertip, slightly grainy, honest. You clean excess slip from the top edge with the sponge, squeezing it over the splash pan. The gray water drips in slow threads. You wring the sponge again, keeping it damp but controlled. Too much water and the walls will collapse. Too little and your hands will drag, tearing the clay. You find the balance. You begin to pull the walls. You position your hands, inside finger and outside knuckle, at the base of the opening. You press them together gently, creating a pinch point where the wall will begin. You rise slowly, lifting the clay between your hands, feeling it thin and stretch and climb. The pressure stays consistent. You travel upward at a steady pace, not so fast that the clay tears, not so slow that it thickens unevenly. You complete the first pull, reaching the rim. The wall has risen, a thin skin standing where there was only open space before. You sponge lightly along the rim, removing the bead of water that has gathered there. You check the thickness with a pinch of your fingers. Still quite thick. Room for more refinement. You make a second pull, the same gentle pinch rising steadily, the wall thinning further between your hands. The clay is wetter now, more responsive, more willing. A third pull refines it. The wall becomes thinner, more itself. You can see the throwing rings now on the interior, concentric circles marking each journey of your hands, a spiral history written in clay. You slow the wheel further. The hum drops to a whisper. You shape the bowl. You place one hand inside, one outside, and apply gentle outward pressure as you rise, creating a curve that opens like a breath. The walls follow your hands. You keep the base stable, not letting the form splay too wide too quickly. The clay wants to move outward. You guide it, allowing the curve but maintaining structure. You compress the rim. You pinch it gently between your thumb and forefinger, traveling around the entire circumference. Once, then again. The rim becomes defined, strong, a clear ending to the form. You smooth it with a damp fingertip, removing small irregularities. You reach for the wooden rib. You hold it at a slight angle against the exterior of the bowl and draw it upward in a slow, steady sweep. It scrapes away the thinnest layer of excess slip, refining the curve, creating a smoother surface. The sound is a soft whisper, wood on wet clay. You make another pass, then one more. The curve becomes clean. A minor uneven spot appears near the shoulder where one pull was slightly heavier than the others. You see it. You correct it with a light inward press of the rib and an even slower wheel. Your hands steady, your breath even. The simple mechanics of return. You stop the wheel. The hum dies. The bowl settles in the still air, solid, present, no longer moving. You sit for a breath, looking at what your hands made. A small bowl, gray, simple, holding the faint texture of reclaimed clay and the visible record of its making. You reach for the wire cutter. You stretch it taut between your hands and position it against the bat, flush to the surface. You pull it beneath the base of the bowl in one smooth motion, feeling the slight give as the wire slices through clay. The bowl is separated, free. You lift the bat carefully, supporting the bowl as you carry it to the shelf. You set it down in the dim light beyond the task lamp's reach. You pull a label from the stack and write with the pencil that hangs from a string. The date, the time, the word reclaim. You press the label onto the bat beside the bowl. You drape plastic sheeting over the bowl loosely, then tuck the edges around the bat so the air stays humid and calm. The bowl will rest now. It will firm slowly, In a day or two, when it reaches leather hard, someone will trim the base, smooth the foot, refine what needs refining. But tonight, it simply rests under its plastic shroud, holding its form, returning from spinning motion to stillness. You walk back to the wheel and begin the cleanup. You rinse the sponge until the water runs from gray to cloudy to almost clear. You wipe each tool with a damp cloth, removing slip from the rib, from the needle's shaft, from the wire cutter's handles. You return them to their places. You lift the splash pan and carry it to the sink, tilting it, watching the gray water spiral down the drain in slow ribbons, carrying clay particles back toward the earth they came from. You wash your hands at the sink. The water is cool. You scrub gently, feeling the clay dissolve away, the slip loosening from your skin, spiraling down the drain in pale clouds. You wash until the water runs clear over your palms, until your skin feels clean again, until only the faint scent of wet earth remains on your fingertips. You dry your hands on the towel, feeling the soft roughness of the fabric. You wipe down the wheel head with a damp cloth. The bat pins shine clean in the task light. You turn off the light. The room drops into shadow. The high window returns to being the brightest thing in the space, a rectangle of deeper dark, the city's night glow barely registering against the glass. You stand in the dim studio, letting your eyes adjust again, letting the stillness settle around you. The wheel is silent. The water in the bucket has stilled. The bowl rests under its plastic covering, invisible now in the darkness but present, solid, complete. You have made one thing. You have returned to center again and again, each time the clay asked for it, each time your hands felt the wobble and responded with pressure that did not waver. Your phone is in your coat pocket by the door. The email can wait until morning, or it can wait longer. The bowl is enough for tonight. You cross the studio to the door. Your footsteps are soft on the gritty floor. You let yourself out, pulling the door closed behind you. The latch clicks. The sound seals the quiet inside, where the bowl waits, where the wheel rests, where the high window holds its peace of night. Thank you for spending this time with the Night Sky Reader. May your night be peaceful. Until next time, rest well.